Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's the Week 16 NFL Review Show, and I'm joined, as always, by Blenderhd Jordan Cooper. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, not that great after this slate. I did fine in GPP, just that every possible decision point for my cash lineup, I picked the wrong one.
I can't wait for you to hear my cash lineup this week. I don't know if you looked at it already when you were looking at results DB. But I can't wait. I crushed this week, so I can't wait to.
You probably played the people I played in GPP that I should have played in cash games.
So I can't wait to talk about it. So we'll get to that. But before we do that, let's get into just kind of breaking down what the cash builds kind of looked at like this week. I think that some news definitely affected cash builds this week. Obviously, like Phillip Lindsay kind of getting ruled out. Melvin Gordon became a cash game play. Keenan Allen getting ruled out kind of made Austin Eckler more of a cash game play. So let's just go over that and talk about it. What were you looking at overall as cash game plays this week?
Okay, I mean, I think for position by position for cash games, at least on DraftKings, we do DraftKings primarily because we have results DB. It's something that you should be looking at every morning. It gets updated. Sometimes it's updated late at night. Sometimes it's updated in the morning for the previous day's slate. And you get to see the exposures of top GPP players in multiple contests, the differences between double ups at different stakes. I mean, it's a good way to learn how to play DFS by just studying other players. But in this week's cash games on DraftKings, at quarterback, you were either playing Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes. Paying up, you had the ability to. I know some people may have paid down a bit for like Trubisky or something like that. I don't think that's out of the question, but I didn't do it. At running back, the three cash game running backs were essentially David Montgomery, Melvin Gordon, and Austin Eckler. But I understand if you played someone like David Johnson with no Procise and no Duke Johnson there. I understand if you played Giovanni Bernard, okay, at 4,800. Le'Veon Bell, I thought was a stretch, but I don't think that was awful. Same for like a Nick Chubb. I just think that your Montgomery and Eckler at that price range were the much higher projected plays right there. Some people played Miles Sanders. I don't know about that, but Darrell Henderson was cheap. If you had to go all the way down there, I don't call you nuts. I'm not sure if that was the correct build. And then let me go through tight end first. If you paid up for tight end, it was Kelsey, obviously. Then if you paid down, you played either Donald Parham, the $2,500 tight end for the Chargers, but you could have played Goddard. You could have played Austin Hooper. I don't think Noah Fant, that range, Noah Fant, Mark Andrews was like in that mid-range. The cash builds probably didn't need a tight end in that range. You'd better off using salary elsewhere. Wide receiver was much more open. The builds for wide receiver, way more choices that were in viability. Just a matter of, did you want to pay up? Did you want to pay down? Did you want to pay all the way down? So if you paid up, most likely you took Calvin Ridley. If you paid in the mid-range, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, I guess, Robert Woods, maybe. But to me, like, all of the wide receiver plays were in the 4 to 5K range. And that would be like Mike Williams with no Keenan Allen. You had T. Higgins at 4,700 with no Tyler Boyd. You had, looking through here, you had the cheap. Some people went to Marvin Hall in the very cheap range. I thought that was a little bit thin. You could have played Sterling Shepard. You could have played Cam Sims was another cheap receiver. Some people played Russell Gage. I don't know about that. Jamison Crowder was viable. That's who I wanted to play, but then I'm like, why am I playing a Jet in my lineups? And that came to bite me in the ass. All the Dallas receivers were good. Cooper, Lamb, Gallup, and they all got there. So if you played any of them, you were good. Darius Slayton, I had in my lineup because at to me, Marvin Hall, like I don't want to go. Who knows with that? I don't want to take shots on that. If anything, let me get a top wide receiver. I know it's necessarily a bad matchup, but for 3,800, I mean, at least he has a ceiling for 20 points. And then Allen Robinson, I guess, in the mid-range also, but most likely you were going up to Ridley. And then at defense, you most likely were playing the Texans, who got -4, or the Panthers, who got like 20. So that was one hell of a swap. The Jets DST was okay, and most likely the Redskins or the Washington team, whatever. I keep on doing that anyway. Like that was about the build. I think if I didn't mention anyone and they were in your cash lineup, you probably made a mistake.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. I think Austin Hooper at tight end was another guy you could have played.
Yeah, no, I said Hooper.
Okay, I heard you say Parham and Kelsey. I didn't hear you say
Parham,
Hooper.
Kelsey, Hooper, Goddard,
Yeah.
in that like the 3K range if you wanted to play a 3K tight end.
Yep.
Out of all that, did you play in your main lineup, which is not necessarily a quote cash lineup? Right. Did you play anyone that I didn't mention?
No.
Okay, so then it's not going to be that nuts.
I played Marvin Hall.
Well, I didn't think that was nuts. I just think it was unnecessary to take a shot on a $3,200 guy.
Well,
I'd rather find the extra couple of $100 and get Gallup, get Slayton, get someone that you know what the hell's going on.
Well, I had 2 spots left at wide receiver, and I was like, I needed cheap wide receiver. So like my most expensive wide receiver this week was T. Higgins. So like I knew I needed cheap receivers. So I was like, well, if I play Crowder and Hall, they kind of correlate with each other. So that's where I ended up. I ended up with Hall and Crowder as like a correlation in the last 2 pieces of my lineup.
Okay, then who did you play at running back?
Sanders, Montgomery, and Giovanni Bernard.
Okay, and then quarterback?
Hurts. So it's Hurts, Sanders, Montgomery, T. Higgins, Crowder, Hall, Kelsey, Gio, and Seahawks defense. It scored 168 points.
It's kind of weird that you didn't play a Cowboy in that lineup.
Well, usually I would, and like always run it back. But I was like, if they route them, I thought Philly was going to route Dallas, like for what it's worth. And the reason that I played Hurts and Sanders is because of how much pace that Philly was gaining and how bad the run defense was for Dallas. So I really thought that it was going to be Hurts getting the 100-yard rushing bonus and Sanders getting the 100-yard rushing bonus and just kind of running all over Dallas. But obviously that wasn't the case. So if I would have ran it back with like Gallup or something instead of maybe T. Higgins, I don't know how much it would have really gained me. 10 points probably.
It's way more points than my lineup. I made every decision wrong. I wanted to play Jamison Crowder. I'm like, why am I playing a Jet? I've done this with Denzel Mims. Like, I know he projects well. I know he's 4,500. I know his prop was like 60 something. And I'm like, do I want to be the fool with the 3% owned Jamison Crowder in cash? He turned out to be 17% owned because that's what he should be. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then, do I play the Texans defense or the Panthers defense? Well, obviously, you know which one I chose. I chose the one with -4. And then, I have no problem with my running back plays. I played Montgomery, I played Gordon, I played Eckler. I know Gordon only put up 7.9 points, but no Lindsey there against the Chargers. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I played T. Higgins, great. I played Amari Cooper, great. But instead of Slayton, Mahomes, I could have gone Hurts plus CeeDee Lamb, played another Dallas wide receiver. The problem was that cheap receiver, that second receiver was always like the second guy of the same team, AJ Green, because I didn't want to play Marvin Hall. So AJ Green, but I already have T. Higgins. So do I really want 2 Brandon Allen pass catchers in my cash games? Do I want 2 Andy Dalton pass catchers in my cash games? So that's what it comes down to. I wasn't going to pay up for Kelsey. I thought about Parham, but I'm like, that could be a 0. So I had a choice between Goddard or Hooper. Well, Goddard projected slightly better, so I took Goddard. And I figured I took Goddard to begin with because since I wasn't playing Jalen Hurts, and I knew Jalen Hurts would be popular, that at least if Goddard has a good game, it like mitigates some of the Hurts points. And then at the point in which I saw what Hooper did, I couldn't switch to anything anyway, so it didn't matter. So like literally, if I would have literally just switched Goddard to Hooper and Texans to Panthers, I would have cashed, even with Slayton's like 5 points. But if I would have done the switch of Hurts, Lamb, Hooper, Crowder, Panthers defense, I would have, I don't know, and maybe would have came in first in double ups. I don't know. Like that would have been the ultimate correct decision. So literally every decision point, I had it all. I had it all there. I had a choice of all of these. I considered all of them. And out of the like maybe the 5 or 6 combinations that I could have made, I ended up choosing the one that ended up being the worst one.
Yeah, see, I never really got excited about like Melvin Gordon. So like I think that was helpful for me because like even in tournaments, I think I had one team with Melvin Gordon on it. So like that obviously came back and helped a little bit. I was very high in tournaments on the Houston Cincinnati game. I talked about it all week, every show that I did. So like in cash games, I feel like there was so many close like 1v1s this week or 2v2s or even 3v3s that, man, you just had to be on the right side. Like you mentioned David Johnson, like had the Philip Lindsay news not come out, how many more people would have played David Johnson? And like, he necessarily wasn't a bad play. So when all the Cleveland news came out, like that affected things too, because I saw people run Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in like 3-mans and 5-mans. So, and you can't even hate on that kind of stuff. Like, I think like, you know, Perham probably would have been a little bit higher owned and Hooper would have lost some ownership had that Cleveland news not come out, but Landry probably would have been pretty popular. So it's tough to say. I think that Saturday night, Sunday morning changed a lot of people's approach to cash this week. Luckily for me, I was busy with family and doing the Christmas thing with my kids and stuff that I didn't even start building a cash lineup until Sunday morning. So I had all the news in front of me and, you know, just kind of messed around with it, you know, at Sunday morning. So I do think it's interesting, you know, that like guys like Deontay Johnson weren't a little bit more popular. I know Calvin Ridley was so expensive that like I'm taking Travis Kelce over Calvin Ridley 10 out of 10 times, you know, if I'm paying up for somebody in cash builds, because we didn't really expect Tyreek Hill to be a huge factor in the game. You know, they were going to be very careful with him. So, you know, I think it's crazy. That
still 10% of people in the $5 single entry played Tyreek Hill in cash at 9,000.
Yeah, it's just that's like paying the rake. I don't even know how many fantasy points he scored, but I feel like that was paying
10.5. He scored 10.5. So, I mean, it wasn't worth 9,000.
No, he almost got outscored by Hardman, who was, I think, free, right? So like, yeah, I don't know. I think David Montgomery was like one of the good chalk plays. T. Higgins, I think, was a good chalk play. I know Brandon Allen, like we were concerned about that, but that game was going to be so fastly paced that like I think T. Higgins was good chalk before the slate even started. So he could have busted easily too. Like, and what stinks is he was like 1 yard away from hitting the 100-yard bonus too. So
right, and T. Higgins was 1 yard away. Higgins and David Montgomery was a couple of yards away from the 100-yard bonus also.
Yeah, Crowder was like 8 yards. Like my team was the definition of getting really close to the 100-yard bonus. So like Kelce had 98, Crowder had 92, Higgins had 99, and David Montgomery had 95 rushing yards. So right there. But yeah, I don't think what you were talking about is not too crazy as far as like cash builds go this week. I was a little shocked how popular Melvin Gordon was. I can't lie. Like I did not expect Melvin Gordon to be 50 to 55% owned this week.
He was one of the top projected running backs. I get it with no Lindsay there. The problem is that Royce Freeman was still active, and they even gave this Bellamy guy some work out of the backfield. So Gordon really didn't. I mean, I don't even know if Gordon was targeted in this game. So once you take away his target share, then Gordon, there's not much different. Actually, David Johnson becomes a better play than Melvin Gordon. Just that Drew Lock passed like 47 times, and I think Gordon had one target or something like that. I mean, I know I followed Drew Lock's stats because I was stacking him in GPP. That didn't work out.
Melvin Gordon had 0 catches. He had 79 rushing yards, and that was it.
Way to go.
So much for the revenge against the Chargers, right?
Yeah, but you don't play him for the revenge game. Who cares about that?
No, he was 5,600, but was he really? I think this is the question we need to be asking, right? Was he really 40% better than David Johnson in cash games at $500 difference?
No, I agree with that.
Like less people in the backfield for Houston than there was going to be for Denver. You can even argue a better matchup for David Johnson and $500 difference. And if you wanted to go down to like Gio, they kind of came in at, about a 35% difference in ownership too. I think like that's what we're supposed to be doing on the show, right? Like we're supposed to be analyzing like, was Melvin Gordon really 35% better than Giovanni Bernard and almost 40% better than David Johnson at a very similar price point?
Right, but typically you're thinking those terms for GPPs more so than cash games. In cash games, I'm actually more inclined to side with the ownership at the other end because of the fact that you don't gain anything with relative value. Like, so what? Oh, Gordon fails and I have Bernard. Like, well, I'm still only doubling up. Like, I'm more like what happens if Gordon puts up 30 and Bernard puts up 5? Well, then you're dead. Like, then you basically tanked your entire cash lineup on one decision. So like in cash games, in double ups, those types of things, if there's a coin flip type of situation like that, I'm much more inclined to go, well, this guy's going to be more like, if you're thinking in terms of, do I play Miles Sanders or David Montgomery? And they're close. Maybe you think Miles Sanders is slightly better. Maybe. Like one, just at the end of the day, just play the 70% on guy. Because if David Montgomery has a 30-point game, like you're dead. Like if you miss on that 1v1, like it almost doesn't matter what the rest of your lineup is anymore. So you have to think in your head, do I want my entire cash slate decided on this? And if your answer is no, then just play the higher own guy. If your answer is yes, it's perfectly fine to say yes. I believe this guy should be, you played David Johnson over Melvin Gordon and obviously got there. Like, that's perfectly fine. That if you were willing to take that risk, the difference between 51% and who knows, 12%. And if you miss on that, you're dead. So how much is your conviction? How much do you trust your projections in that regard? And that's perfectly fine. In GPP, you do the other way. The GPP, you get rewarded. If that flip happens in your favor, like you gain so much, you could win first place that way. In cash games, winning first place doesn't get you anything.
I think even in cash games, though, like the whole David Johnson, Melvin Gordon argument, like David Johnson projected just as well as Melvin Gordon.
Little lower.
It was like 2 points, I think, or something like that.
Okay, 2 points is a lot.
2 points is a lot.
But Stevie, in this economy, 2 points is a lot.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at, as far as like David, I didn't play David Johnson. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like I didn't play Melvin Gordon either. But I'm saying that David Johnson shouldn't have been 40% difference because he's playing 80 to 90% of the snaps. Melvin Gordon is not playing 80 to 90% of the snaps. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree. You're preaching to the choir. I just played Gordon because everyone else was playing Gordon. Maybe I'm the idiot.
That's not how I build, so I can't that's why I don't play a lot of cash games. That's why I play a main lineup and play more 3 and 5 mans, and I don't play head-to-heads because I should play head-to-heads. Jordan, I should play head-to-heads.
Right, you should play head-to-heads instead of double-ups. Like your type of lineup is good for 3 mans, 5 mans, and head-to-heads, and then just don't worry about the double-ups.
It's good for single entry tournaments too. I had a good week in single entry tournaments. But yeah, I should have ran back a Dallas player. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as cash games?
No, I did horrible. I want to talk about where I did well in GPPs. Because I did the same thing as you, Stevie. Like I hand built 30 lineups. Okay, I was playing, and I didn't play the slanter, and I was playing the $40 multi-entry. I was playing the spies, all the single entry 3 max stuff, and like half my lineups. I mean, I have it right here. Like, yeah, I played a ton, but the games that I was focused on in GP. No, the games that I was focused on was Cincinnati, Houston, Denver, Chargers, Dallas, Eagles, and then as I was building, like I had to decide: do I want more of these games, or like no one was playing Lamar Jackson, so I'm like, I could fill a tight end spot with him, and Slayton and Shepard actually projected halfway decently in the blitz, so I'm like, why don't I play Lamar plus Andrews plus Shepard, Lamar plus Andrews plus Slayton? Because Lamar's ownership was like 5%. So I mean, obviously, Lamar Jackson could put up 40 points in any game. So pretty much that's what I did. I mean, and then I took a little bit of the Rams Seahawks game, like Robert Woods, Chris Carson. That didn't work out. But for the most part, I mean, the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Cincinnati Houston game. I mean, I had David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Watson. I got Higgins. I mean, that's what made most of my lineups. And then I played a bunch of Hooper Crowder combinations. Hunt Crowder. If I'm not going to play Crowder in catch, at least let me projects well. Let me at least play him in GPP as a one-off or something, or a secondary stack. So like out of my 30 lineups, I think I cashed like 22 of them. But I mean, I didn't have enough to get in like the top 100 or anything like that. But it was a profitable week in GPPs just from that point.
Listen, I did not play as many tournament lineups as I usually do this week. Just was too busy with the holidays. But I would say about 50% of my builds were Houston, Cincinnati stacks. I was very, very high on that game.
What did I thought it was even better when they announced that Brandon Allen was playing quarterback and not Ryan Finley.
Yes. Because he will chuck it a little bit more than Finley. So yeah, and then like when Boyd got ruled out, like it was just a full go for me on like T. Higgins and some AJ Green. So a lot of David Johnson when Duke Johnson got ruled out. Like that whole game just kind of set up to very condensed market shares in targets and rushing attempts. And the pace was going to be really good. And like Houston and Cincinnati doesn't play defense. So like that game, I talked about it so much this week. I think it sat at like a 45 and a half total at the beginning of the week. And like I was telling everybody to pound anything up to 48 all week. So hopefully they listened. That game, turned out being really good. My biggest issue was I went really high on secondary stacks of like Sanders and Philly's defense. So like that's where I kind of got burned in tournaments this week. Not having Gallup, not having a lot of CeeDee Lamb. I had some Amari Cooper. Like Amari Cooper was in my main lineup on FanDuel. I did run back like my Philly stack on FanDuel. So like it was just kind of, finding that right balance this week. And there was some weird games. Like, Kansas City was another game that I kind of approached that I wanted to be pretty heavy on the Kansas City side of things. And it kind of dudded, let's be honest. When you look at the pricing, Travis Kelce was fine. He scored 22 fantasy points. You can't really complain about that. He was
the only guy that I played from that game. Only because the opportunity cost at tight end is just he's the one that could break the slate. So if I have money, I'm going to pay for him. But I played zero Ridley. I played zero. I mean, Mahomes was in my cash lineup, but I didn't play. My whole goal in GPP this week was that game to dud, and that a lower scoring slate I could win with Cincinnati, Houston, or Chargers and Broncos with my vomit lock stacks. He's horrible. I mean, but sometimes he's such a high variance quarterback. It's like either he comes out slinging and gets lucky with these passes, or sometimes, I mean, if you watched him play, wow, is he bad?
Some of my other secondary stacks were like Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas. That kind of worked out. Curtis Samuel had a really good game. He was 1% owned in the $50 like single entry stuff. That's just what the team I happened to pull up. But again, that was like Sanders, Eagles. I played some Trubisky and Allen Robinson, didn't run it back. We talked about last week that I'm officially done running back Jacksonville with Jacksonville. Like Trubisky did fine. He scored 24. Robinson scored 23, and I didn't need a run back. Like that was one of my higher scoring teams. But it had like a David Johnson, T. Higgins, like secondary stack with it as well. So I think this week, David Montgomery we knew was going to be chalk. He was going to be really, really popular. And there wasn't many ways to kind of make your David Montgomery teams different. Am I crazy? Like you could potentially play Montgomery and Trubisky together. I think I didn't end up doing any of that. But I didn't see a lot of ways. So I tried to find some lower owned secondary stacks on my Montgomery teams.
Well, I mean, I just didn't bother with that game much. I mean, I played Montgomery. I played the Bears defense. Like, it's like, oh, I get leverage by playing Allen Robinson. It's like, well, he's owned. And then Trubisky's stack's still going to be owned. Then I'm like, do I play Darnell Mooney? And I'm like, do I have to do that? So I was more inclined to just like, I did just ignore the game, play some Montgomery and play Montgomery in my lock. Because the lock vomit stacks are so cheap that like you're forced to pay up at different places. And if I'm not playing Calvin Ridley, like those places are going to be a running back. So lock stacks obviously would have Eckler as a run back. That makes sense. And then it would have Montgomery. And then I'm having a chalk combination at the running back position, but I don't mind because lock is 2%. I have Jerry Jeudy at 3%. I have Noah Fant at 8%. Like I don't care anymore. Like the Broncos stacks were low enough owned that I could just jam in whatever I wanted in those and didn't have to worry about ownership. I didn't play any Donald Parham. Even though I was playing Broncos, because if I was going to fill in a tight end spot from that game, it's going to be Noah Fant. It's not going to be Donald Parham. And I ain't going to do the Parham-Fant double tight end. If that wins before the slate, I'm like, if that's the winner, then I guess I don't want to be right if that's the case. That makes it there. But yeah, I mean, to me, on a 10-game slate, there weren't as many options as we'll see. Next week, we're going to have a 15-game slate, and half the teams have nothing to play for, and we're not going to know what the hell's going on until 90 minutes before lock with some of this inactives news. So next week's NFL slate is the
Christmas
equivalent
morning
of like
2.0, buddy.
What?
It's Christmas morning 2.0.
Oh, you think it's Christmas morning?
I love week 17. I've been so
you
profitable
must like
in
the
week
last
17.
week of NBA also.
No, I hate NBA, late NBA, but I feel like it's easier to adjust an hour and a half before lock than it is 5 minutes before lock when you're
so
taking in a lot of news.
5 minutes. That's what makes a Christmas day for you.
Well, think about it. Like week 17, there's so much edge in just going overweight on any kind of news that comes out Sunday morning, and like that's what I just do. Like I usually don't even like build a team until 11:30 on week 17. I think
I'm just going to play GPP. We're going to come on and do this show the last week of the year, and I'm probably going to say I didn't play cash games because I ain't going to deal with it. Like I'll play like that edge is more realized in GPPs.
Oh yeah,
than anything else. Because typically sharper players tend to play cash games more, so they'll adjust as much as I adjust. So like I'm going to be playing the low stake stuff, the play action, the slant stuff like that. Because we even see this week in GPP, Melvin Gordon was 38% in the Wildcat, 17% in the play action. Now, yes, I know he didn't get there, but I mean with the Lindsey news and everything, he's like Montgomery was about even across all contests because it's like that's a knowable thing. Austin Eckler, 27% in the Wildcat, 15% of the play action. T. Higgins, 22% in the Wildcat, 15% in the play action. So it's like David Johnson, 18% of the Wildcat, 12% in the play action. Austin Hooper was, actually more owned in the low stakes. Donald Parham was 16% of the Wildcat, 5% in the play action. So this just shows that any type of news type of thing is more likely to be efficient in the higher stakes and not in the lower stakes. So obviously with week 17 being very heavy with that, that's the reason why I'm more inclined to like, let me take advantage and get the rake paid in the low stakes contests. Maybe I do. It may sound weird to do, but at 11:30 with inactives, like that's when I build my 100 plus. Like I don't even do the Saturday night. I'm going to build before and then tweak when I hear inactives. It's like, it may be the thing where I might as well just blow everything up and just don't start until then.
Sleep in on Sunday morning this week. No, listen, like I think like look at the play action and look at the Wildcat this week. I think that sharper players adjusted to the later news and like the lower stakes stuff. People built Saturday night and then didn't adjust Sunday morning. Giovanni Bernard, a little bit more popular in the lower stakes. Le'Veon Bell, 20.8% in the play action and 14.6% in the Wildcat. Like that's a lot of Saturday night building when that news didn't really affect things. And that's why Melvin Gordon was 17 and 38, like you were saying. There was a few others that like were kind of widespread. David Johnson, the lower stakes, a lot lower owned, a lot higher owned in the higher stakes stuff. So there's a lot of difference in those. I feel like people ran back Kansas City, Atlanta a lot this week. A lot of correlation and ownership with those stacks. I think, kind of looking through this morning, saw a lot of Cincinnati, but didn't see a lot of Houston with the run back. And like, if you're going to play Cincinnati in that game, you should have definitely been running it back with, Houston. Like, you want that game to shoot out. And there was plenty of ways that you could run it back. David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Kute. There was plenty of like Deshaun Watson. Like when you're seeing Le'Veon or Giovanni Bernard around 20% and T Higgins around 20%, you're not seeing any of the Houston guys over like 15. Like there was missed opportunity if you were, high on that game.
Right. I was primarily playing Watson stacks. That's the reason.
Yep.
Like if I'm going to play T Higgins, well, why don't I just play Watson, QT, Cooks? If I'm going to play Watson stacks, why don't I play Watson, Bernard, Cooks? Like instead of me playing Brandon Allen as the stack, I played Watson as the stack because obviously at his price at 7,600, more people are playing Hurts and more people are playing Mahomes. So like it's right in that dead zone, and I'm gonna get leverage by doing so. So like 7% owned Watson plus 10%, 12% owned Cooks plus a chalky T Higgins. Well, I have a decent amount of leverage that like if I want to play David Montgomery in that lineup, that's probably perfectly fine.
What else kind of stood out to you this week as far as tournaments go?
Up here, recency bias. I mean, there's no reason why J.D. McKissick and the play action should be 6% owned and Pollard be 2.5% owned. But people look at game logs and don't realize that Ezekiel Elliott and Antonio Gibson are back. But McKissick still put up 23 points, so they got
caught a long touchdown though.
Right, but I'm just saying. I noticed Wildcat 1%, play action 6%. Like this is obviously recency game log watching. Tony Pollard. Why are you playing Tony Pollard with Zeke back? Like at a 6,500 or something, that's ridiculous. So to me, 2.45% of people in the play action, like that's like a rake reduction, I guess. Like that's why I like looking at all the way at the bottom. I see is like because you'll find these 1%, like 1%, 0.9%, and you go, why would anyone play them? Like I'm not talking about like real people. Like Zach Pascal was 1% owned. But I mean, he's a real person. Like there's no reason the Nets didn't project well or anything, but at least he's a guy that's going to see the field, and he's a cheap guy at his price. So yeah, okay, I get it. But I mean, I'm looking at I try to find the people that are like injured or not going to play. Benny Snell is 1% owned in the play action. Why? Connor's back. Like those types of things, and yeah, and it all adds up. You don't find as much of that in the higher stakes contests. So to me, the lower stake contests, even though they're raked higher, I think, especially in NFL, especially in large field, that there's enough it almost feels like I could add up like the percentage of players that like are so poorly projected or so badly in lineups that like instead of 15% rake, maybe it's an effective 10%, 12% rake because those lineups are just completely dead, and it kind of evens things out. So I'd rather the rake be lower, sure, but in the lower stakes, I think a lot of that is paid for by a lot of dead lineups.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. You know, like Gus Edwards, he kind of got there, but like he wasn't a great play going into the slate. So, and he was, 2% in some contests. Man, the one thing that like I wish I could get back this week is just being heavier on Dallas.
I don't know why you weren't. To me, they projected so well. I was like, but the thing is that I was considering doing an Andy Dalton stack. I was considering it. I was like, well, I have Cooper, I have Lamb, I have Gallup. I'm mixing them all in. I don't necessarily like the Eagles receivers because like everyone's healthy. They have Jackson back, Alshon Jeffrey and Fulgham and Rager and Goddard and Ertz, like and Tigers and Bears, oh my, whatever. I mean, like there's just too much stuff going on there. But I like Hurts is a rushing quarterback. So I'm like, well, I built Dalton. I go Dalton, Lamb, Cooper. And I'm like, well, who do I play for the Eagles? Like Goddard in the tight end spot, and that's it. It's like, to me, it makes sense to just like, well, let me just change Dalton to Hurts. Because I think if this game shoots out, Hurts beats Dalton. So like the Cowboys receivers get there, but Hurts is higher scoring than Dalton. So that's what I built. It turned out that Dalton put up more, but the Cowboys were the ones that beat the Eagles by a ton of points.
Yeah. I don't know. I got so one-sided on that game, like mentally. Wish I would have just had a few like run back or a few like Dalton stacks. Very, like I said, very high on like Sanders, Eagles defense, and that was I get in retrospect that was probably dumb. So I was like, how do I get off of Jalen Hurts? Well, I'll play Sanders with the Eagles defense.
Well, you get off of Hurts by playing the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, you get off of Hurts by playing Dalton with Gallup and CeeDee Lamb and Cooper, and then running it back with like Miles Sanders or something. I don't know. This is just one that I wish I could get back a little bit. I faded Le'Veon Bell, faded Perham. Like I made some good decisions this week. Like I said, I was very, very low on Melvin Gordon. One of the reasons that I had such a good week was just to, fade the bad chalk. Man, I wish I didn't even have a ton of like Austin Eckler. I don't think he killed you. If you weren't really heavy on him, like my main running backs this week were David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, and Giovanni Bernard. Like I played those guys a ton throughout my lineups. Went pretty heavy on David Johnson and Kareem Hunt too. I thought Kareem Hunt was going to have a big game out of the passing side of the game. So I don't know, man. I think that there was a lot of opportunities this week. We say it, I feel like we say it every week, but a lot of opportunities to gain on the field with late news this week.
Yeah, and you should brush up on that for week 17, 15 games. Who knows what's going to happen? They flexed the Washington Eagles game to the night game because that's the one that we want to see. I mean, because obviously the NFC East, it's a matter of like who out of these bad teams is actually going to win this division. So that I guess that those are the meaningful games. But we have a lot of, I mean, we're going to see a lot of people resting. If you haven't played NFL DFS until this year, you don't realize week 17 is like you don't even know like the entire starters will be out, and then you have to just guess and go, well, who's the wide receiver one and who's this guy going to throw to? And like you're not even sure about that. So there'll be quote tons of value because the sites will come out with pricing, and then like half the people that are 8K and above just aren't even in. Like they don't even play. So now like you could build any teams that you want. Like you have no problem. Salary is not an issue anymore. It's just a matter of like, well, is this you're going to have like $1,500, $3,500 wide receivers to choose from, and no one know. And you could listen. No offense to Stevie and Grant on the morning grind on the midweek, but you could listen that we're just all guessing at this point. You could say, oh, well, so McCole Hardman's going to go. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with these teams? Like, oh, Allen Robinson sitting, and then, oh, well, it's going to be all Anthony Miller, and then Javon Wims comes out of nowhere with 12 catches. I mean, like just this is a great week to embrace variance. So if there's groupthink, if you're researching and you see other people talking a lot about certain things, like this, week 1 and week 17 are great weeks to embrace variance, because week 1, a lot of teams are new and we don't know who's good and who's bad. So, people don't know as much. And week 17, same type of thing. So I'm much more likely Sunday morning to go like, oh, everyone thinks this, and I'm going to think the negatively correlated thing to that, because it's more likely to work out for you than, look, Marvin Hall. Oh, he's going to be wide receiver 1. Who the hell knows? With none of their wide receivers there, you didn't know if Hunt was going to be a wide receiver. They're going to run 2 running backs, 3 tight ends. They could have done a multitude of things. So anyone that says that they're sure of what's going to happen is more likely to be wrong on a week 17 than any other week.
I don't disagree with that either. I don't think there is anything sure. I think the thing you do week 17 the most research on is what games matter, what teams are playing for something. Start there and then kind of see like what falls on Sunday morning. And that's what me and Grant are going to be talking about a lot. What games matter? Like, you look at the Chiefs. Like, do the Chiefs roll out their starters the full game? Probably not. But the back end of that is like, could Travis Kelce break records at tight end? I think he's getting close to breaking.
I think he already did.
Did he break it
this game?
Yeah. So, like Mike Evans, he needs I think 20 or 30 yards to be the first wide receiver ever to start his career with 7 straight 1,000 receiving. But when he gets that, he's probably done. I don't think Tampa is really going to roll these guys out there. They're locked into the wild card, and they're kind of old. All those guys are old. So you're gonna have to see what games matter. Like, could the Bucs go out and play a full game and try to catch the Saints? I don't know who has the tiebreaker, so you got to kind of look and see like who has the tiebreaker between the Saints and the Bucs, because if that game doesn't matter, like, what is Green Bay going to do? Are they going to go out there and try to put up points to lock in the number 1 seed? Yes. Green Bay is going to be full force 100%, and they got a chance they can beat the Bears and hurt their playoff chances. So like, those are the types of games that are going to matter. Is much going to change for the Chargers? No. Like, they've been out of it for so long. Is a lot going to change for the Falcons? Well, Julio's probably not going to play, but outside of that, like, they're probably going to roll out their guys. They got an interim coach that's trying to prove himself. So I think week 17 is all about finding the situations. I think that if David Carr is really dealing with like a groin injury, we might see like
Carr. David Carr doesn't play anymore. I know.
Carr.
I do that all the time also, right? I remember David Carr. It's like, no, it's Derek
Houston.
Carr. What is it?
But yeah, like, we might see like Marcus Mariota this week. So like, that's the kind of things that really could open up all types of value and open up all kinds of things. I think the Chiefs are in the driver's seat to rest guys as much as possible. They're 2 games up on the Steelers. They're locked in. They're gonna have a week off after this too, so maybe they play the first half. But I think like, if they're priced up, this is a team we probably pretty much stay away from at first glance. Like, the Dolphins have to win, so like, that's a team, like, they're playing the Bills. That should be a shootout type of game. That should be a really good game. So, Josh Allen is a guy that's already like on my radar. Steelers kind of need to win their game to stay ahead of the Bills, depending on what happens on Monday night. Like, the Steelers and the Bills game's going to matter. So a lot of games potentially mattering, especially like the Steelers-Browns game. Like, that's a game that I have circled. The 1:00 games look fantastic, the AFC games. So kind of have to see. But I think week 17 is going to be fantastic. So, yeah.
Anything else, why you check out all the content at RotoGrinders. If you're a premium member, you get all the premium stuff that are the Discord, the videos and everything, Lineup HQ. So go to rotogrinders.com/premium. There's still that we if NBA you can just pay for NBA. If you just want just a sport, then just pay for that sport. But if you want all in one, there's now a new combo package. So like you could even if you don't want to pay for premium, you can get the RotoGrinders app. And it always has like the latest news. You can get push notifications. Oh, so-and-so is sitting in NBA, like weird starting lineup in something, or, so-and-so is inactive at 11:30 in the morning. Like our news team at RotoGrinders handles all that. So feel free to download the app, turn on the notifications for it, for whatever sport, whatever content. If you want to know when the grind down is posted, there you could even get a notification for that. So like you don't have to worry. Where do I look for this information? Like it'll just come to you. Like I don't have to start. Hey, Stevie, is so-and-so going to play this week? It's like, oh, well, when that news comes out, when that Q tag becomes inactive, like I'll just get a notification. It's beautiful.
It's going to be a very busy week for the alerts team. That is for sure. So that's going to wrap it up here for the week 16 review show. We will be back next week. We will review week 17. We will have a basketball podcast on Monday as well, like we did today. You guys can check that out. It's on the Morning Grind feed. 5-game NBA slates, and we're just patiently waiting for some Brooklyn news. So, Blender, always fun, my friend. We'll be back next week. I know you got the preview show that's starting up here soon, pregame show that's going to be starting up for NBA. Once NFL kind of goes down, and you got the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour masterclass that you guys should definitely check out. So that's going to wrap it up. See you guys next week. Good luck in your contest for week 17. It's going to be fun.